Welcome to the Nate and Steph podcast, episode number 1.
Number 1?
Yeah, again.
Number 1, we're restarting. We're doing over.
We haven't been very consistent with these,
so we're deleting all of the previous ones.
Yeah, we're going to delete all the rest of our podcasts so we can start over.
Now, we haven't been very consistent with these over the last few weeks.
Yeah, we were just in Nicaragua there for a minute, and then like the last 2 weeks, just with like this stuff going on with like coronavirus, it's like kind of haven't been fucking motivated to do it. Just I think depressed is probably like too strong of a term, but kind of, I guess, just like mentally exhausted.
Yeah, mentally exhausted is a good way to put it. It's so emotionally straining and just draining throughout the rest of the week that it's hard to really do anything on the weekends that's structured, that you have to do.
Yeah, I think so.
Not that this is really structured, but even like getting out all of the lights.
Yeah, getting out the equipment and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but
it's a lot.
We'll talk about that in a second. That's not going to be what this entire podcast is going to be about, I don't think. So today's beer of the day, podcast beer,
is...
Why did I say that like that?
I don't know.
Beer
Camber
of the day
Brewing.
From Camber Brewing. Local company. Local brewery. I am drinking
Support local companies.
I am drinking their Backcountry Brown Ale.
And I am drinking their après-ski apricot wheat. It's actually spelled that way too. It's apricot.
Oh, I made a mess.
Oh no.
Oh, just gotta use the pants. Use the pants napkin. Wow, Nick gave us our money's worth.
Oh.
Look at that. It's like actually like more full than what the can is. That's kind of cool. Nick gave us our money's worth.
Definitely got our money's worth on these.
Oh, it's got a foam. Oh gosh.
Ooh, that's a nice pour.
Mine was not very good.
Haha. I did a great job at that.
I'm terrible at this. Anyway, so yeah, Camber Brewing, they're just like right down the road. They're kind of like our go-to spot for the past year since we've been living here. I'm gonna put this logo out there. Just like that.
I'm also wearing the shirt.
So that's been kind of our go-to place for the last year, basically, since we moved here, and they've had to shut down. So with everything going on, specifically, I think quite a few states have started doing this, but like Colorado in particular has shut down restaurants and bars and gyms and all kinds of other places where there's, typically like
gatherings of people.
Yeah, quite a few like gatherings and stuff like that. And I mean, it's the right thing to do in my opinion. But it still sucks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I understand why they're doing it, and I support why they're doing it, and I agree with it. But that doesn't mean that it sucks any less for the businesses and for the community as a whole. When we went to pick up...
Oh, we didn't cheers. I'm sorry.
We didn't.
Cheers to doing a podcast, even though we've been just kind of mentally out of it the last few weeks.
Yeah, cheers to getting back to it.
Okay, sorry.
But
oh, that's good. Oh,
yeah,
oh my gosh.
What was I saying? Yeah, I mean, it's just like the strain on the community too. Mm-hmm. The mental strain of everything. Like Nate was saying, for us for the last few weeks, it's been hard to think of anything for your brain to be thinking of anything else other than coronavirus. It's been, it's what my entire day has been like at work. Trying to help, because I mean, my job is helping small business owners. And so when my small business owners are worried about their businesses and how they're going to keep operating,
mm-hmm.
And if they're going to keep operating, it's mentally taxing on me. It's emotionally taxing on me, as we're sitting there, talking about everything. And then after work for the day, it's you get onto social media and that's all anybody's talking about.
Yeah.
And you turn on the TV and that's all I mean, even just YouTube. Like we don't watch the news like on TV, but even on YouTube, it's like everybody's starting off their YouTube
Yeah.
videos talking about it. And I mean, I understand it. Like
Yeah.
it would
It's
feel weird to. I mean, that's the reason that we're talking about it right now. It would feel weird to just ignore it.
Just straight up ignore
like,
it.
how could you possibly ignore it? It's
'Cause
literally everything that we're thinking
It
about.
has been strange in the YouTube videos for Explorer's Life. You know, I'm not, because all the videos I'm focusing on making on Explorer's Life right now are just like these evergreen videos that are just going to be, they're going to be relevant for longer than, the next like month or two.
Yeah.
And so whenever people see these videos in like 3 years, it doesn't need to have anything about coronavirus in it.
That's true. I mean, you wouldn't want it to because you don't want,
Yeah.
you don't want, in 3 years, you don't want to be just reminding people of it.
Yeah, and it's not relevant to like, crimping wires, like how to crimp wires, how to strip wires, all that kind of stuff. And so it's like, you just like get right into the content. Like earlier today, or like earlier this week, I was like super conflicted and like not wanting to like stay the course because a piece of fuzz floating around. Stay the course on like video schedules because I was like really wanting to do a video over like, should you go camping during this time? And it's like, it just doesn't matter. Like it's not relevant.
It's not relevant.
It's not
no.
relevant enough.
No, it's really not relevant.
Yeah.
It's not relevant and like, no offense, but nobody really wants to hear your opinion on
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
on that.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's totally right. And that's part of the reason, like, I was like, nah, I don't need to do that.
Yeah. It was, I think we did have a decent day today so far. You know, got out and went and got groceries pretty early this morning before the mass crowds got out. So that was nice. That is even mentally taxing. Like going grocery shopping is pretty mentally taxing, but
Yeah.
this was our first time going out like pretty early, and that was a lot better. That was a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Much easier. And, we're up in the mountains. And so like small town, grocery stores, not too bad. But it's still one of those things. Like you go at like 1:00 in the afternoon on a weekend, there's going to be a lot of people out.
Yeah.
So we got up early and we were there, 30 minutes after the place opened at 7:00, and it was fine. But like as far as like how seriously we're taking this, like we've been taking this pretty seriously for like about 3 weeks at this point. I think Steph really clued into like how serious this was going to get pretty early on, definitely before most people did. Even me probably by a few days, but we've done so well, during our time traveling, just because we operate pretty well as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever Stephanie's taking something really seriously, it's like I'm obligated to also take it seriously. Like, unless I think it's just absolutely absurd or it's like a negative, like detriment or something like that.
Yeah.
Sparta, why are you clicking around so
I
much?
know, it's just so annoying.
Sparta,
Buddy, go lay down.
go lay down. Anyway, yeah, and so we have been pretty much quarantining ourselves, a voluntary quarantine for about 3 weeks at this point.
Yeah. And we haven't had any exposure or anything that we know of.
No.
So there's not like, we're not being mandated to quarantine or anything like that. We're just trying to do our part to make sure that we don't spread the virus. And
Yeah. And part of that is
Yeah.
just like staying out of, basically removing ourselves from the equation.
Mm-hmm.
We're both super competitive. And so, all these projections and stuff like that we've seen on numbers and stuff like that, the worst case scenario, like that curve is, it has it basically infecting like 80% of people. And that's a lot of people. Like that's a really, really bad figure. But, the way that we started like having to like mindset shift was it's like, well, we need to be in that 20% that is not infected, that does not get infected. And it wasn't, and the reason for doing that wasn't as selfish as it sounds, because it's like, no, of course we don't want to get sick. Like, yeah, we definitely want to like avoid getting sick. But for every one person that gets this virus, so far they've estimated that you will give the virus to 2 to 3 people. So if Steph and I avoid getting it, then that's, 4 to 6 people that don't get it because of us. And so by totally removing ourselves from the equation, we're like, well, that's what we can do. Because you can only control like yourself. You can't control the spread of the virus.
Absolutely.
You can control like keeping your house clean, which we've been keeping the house super, super clean.
Yeah.
Washing our hands too much. My hands are actually kind of wrecked because I've been washing them.
Yeah, you need to be better about putting
know.
lotion on after you wash.
Yeah, I've always been I've never had like problems with like dry skin or anything like that, like specifically on my hands, but I do now.
Yeah. I had a really a really sucky thing happen last weekend. We found a bottle of hand sanitizer at one of the local grocery stores.
Yeah.
One single bottle, bought it, and I kept it in my office because I have a really bad habit of like when I'm talking to clients or working or whatever, I touch my face a lot. And so I put it at my desk and I used it for one day and my hands broke out. So I'm allergic to the hand sanitizer.
Allergic to whatever was in the hand sanitizer.
Like, fucking typical of me. Like this bad virus is going around. I'm trying to make sure that I don't spread it and everything. Obviously hand washing is the best, but hand sanitizer like helps with that. And yeah, I'm freaking allergic to the hand sanitizer. So
Yeah.
I have been being a lot better about washing my hands like incessantly upstairs, like while I'm working.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess if I'm only touching the things that I've been touching all day,
That
then
they're sterile. But
there shouldn't be anything new introduced into my office.
Yeah, the other part about that is just like staying like generally healthy. If you get like a cold, just like the common cold, your immune system is immediately lowered anyway, and so you're more susceptible for getting additional nasties.
Well, and you're also very susceptible to getting mauled by other people.
Oh yeah.
Just like I had a cold last week, and I was like, I'm not leaving the house because I'm coughing, and I mean, obviously that's bad anyway, but right now, like coughing and having a running nose, no, I'm not leaving the house. I don't want people to think that I have it and like think that I need to.
It's like, no,
be quarantined.
I sneeze all the time anyway.
Yeah.
This is normal.
This is just a normal day for me.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been kind of a weird thing. They closed down Rocky Mountain National Park this weekend, and I think that's a good thing. So whenever Steph told me about it, like this morning, I was like, that's kind of dumb. Like I can't really think of any reason like to close that. Like there's plenty of air. And then like the longer I got thinking about it, it's like the more sense it made, because it was like, yeah, there's like plenty of air and like you can get out and you can absolutely like spread out, throughout Rocky Mountain National Park. There's tons of land there. Even if you like have to pass somebody on the trail, like, and come within 6 feet, like you're, going opposite directions or whatever, like not that big a deal in all reality. There's not that many people out there. But the thing is like more people out means there's going to be more. If the more people that go to like, go outside and have recreation time, the more chance there is of people getting hurt. And when people get hurt, they need medical attention. And there's already like just a huge shortage of like personal protective equipment. So like masks and gloves, and gloves is really an issue right now. And so, if you slip and fall and get hurt, even if it's something, fairly minor or whatever, but let's say you break your ankle or something like that, step off the side of the trail and break your ankle. And, first responders are going to have to come and they're going to have to use their PPE. They're going to take you to the hospital where you're going to have surgery on your ankle to reset whatever bones you broke. And they're going to have to use all kinds of PPE. Their time could be spent better, but emergencies happen. But it's just the PPE is the limited resource there that we're having trouble sourcing. That, and then also like on the drive to wherever you're going, so if you drive to Rocky Mountain National Park or whatever, it's an hour drive, hour and a half from Denver or whatever. more cars on the road are going to be, that means more accidents. More accidents means more first responders showing up. Anytime a fire truck shows up, you're going to have an ambulance there. So it's going to be 6 guys wearing at least a pair of gloves each. And it's like that PPE could be better spent like, fighting with this coronavirus outbreak. So that's why it's not about like trying to keep people inside to like stifle their getting outsideness. It's about not putting
Limiting
a strain.
Yeah, limiting injuries.
Yeah, not putting a strain on the hospital system.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also not spreading, because one of the articles that I read regarding that, and Rocky Mountain in particular, was the mayor of Estes Park specifically asked for it to be closed down because it was bringing a lot more people into Estes Park, and they don't have the infrastructure right now to support a whole bunch of even just day trippers going up there. They're trying to limit the number of people that are working also, and even just working in convenience stores and
gas stations.
Yeah,
the grocery store up there.
Grocery store. Mm-hmm.
People passing through.
Well, I mean, grocery stores are already in a strain.
Yeah.
Like, our grocery store was completely out of ground beef, completely out of deli meat, completely out of ketchup. Ketchup was gone.
Oh, they were totally out of the fucking
pasta sauce.
Pasta sauce.
Pasta and pasta sauce. So people are going to be eating spaghetti for a while.
So I had this like theory about this because it's like, the whole thing with like toilet paper, like that's a panic buying thing. Like people are scared and they see other people buying toilet paper, and so they're like, oh my gosh, I need toilet paper now. Like that's what happens. Like
that's exactly what happened.
It just happened to be toilet paper this time around. Like when we lived in Oklahoma and like a ice storm would be coming through, people would buy like
milk and
bread
for their damn milk sandwiches.
And so it was always this like weird thing that that like people buy these things, but they see other people buying it. You see something like going out of stock really quickly, and it's like, oh, other people need it. Maybe they know something I don't, and I should get some too. And
or I should go ahead and get some because I'm gonna need it in the future, even though I don't really need it right now. But if everybody's buying it, it's a compounding effect.
Yeah, and it's a fear coping mechanism is what it is, and it's human psychology. Like glitch. It's a weird thing. But the thing with we came up with like a little bit of a theory about like the ketchup. I think that like now that more people are at home, and they're like, restaurants are shut down, and delivery is still an option, I guess, but like you can't go out to a restaurant.
Well, and people are scared.
Of ordering food because they're like, well, they haven't seen who's cooking it and all that kind of stuff. Which, rightfully so or whatever. But yeah, it's like running out of ketchup. I think just more people are at home that don't know how to cook, I
think that's incredibly true.
Which is pretty entertaining, to be honest. Yeah. They're like, I'm going to have so many French fries. I don't know. Because the frozen French fries, I think, were sold out too.
Oh, frozen everything except for carrots. Frozen carrots.
Edamame.
And edamame. I think people were like, I don't know what this edamame stuff is. I don't know what to do with that. So let's just leave that. But let's buy. Well, we were able to get.
I don't know what this weird ass green bean is.
Yeah.
Somebody bought some edamame and tried to like eat it like green bean, and they're like, fucking like, this is tough. This shell is terrible.
Oh, I laughed, but I remember the first time I ate edamame, and I wasn't sure if you were supposed to eat the shell.
Not sure what to do with it.
But yeah, we were able to get some broccoli, some frozen broccoli, some frozen carrots, and we already had edamame, so we didn't buy any. We always keep edamame stocked.
Yeah.
But that was kind of entertaining. No frozen French fries. None whatsoever.
Yeah, 0.
Oh.
Yeah. But we're doing okay. Since we both work online, like we still have struggles and stuff like that, but like not near as much as like people in the food industry and stuff like that. So we're pretty fortunate there.
Yeah. And I do want to take an opportunity to say, like, if you are able to, and if you are fortunate like us and still have a steady income and a job, try to support your local businesses as much as possible. You know, like we said, we went out today and bought some crawlers from Camber Brewing. You know, we'll be ordering takeout as much as we possibly can. Obviously, I don't want to like increase my takeout consumption just because of this, but to an extent, yeah, I do. You know, we can support our local businesses. And we can also buy gift cards if we don't want to go out to eat right now. If we don't want to have delivery or takeout or anything like that, we can also buy gift cards. And something that I saw, and actually Nate asked me about this last week, of when people were saying like buy gift cards to help these small businesses. He was like, well, does that really help? Because you know, you're going to use it later, and then they're not going to have that money later. And the answer is yes, it does help. Absolutely, it does help. And the reason that it helps is it helps smooth cash flows. So if you can imagine going from having income steadily, you know, and maybe having a little bit more than what you actually needed to cover your fixed costs, to cover like what you absolutely had to spend, and you had a little bit more, and so you're spending a little bit more also. And then all of a sudden your cash flow stops, absolutely stops. Nothing else is coming in. That's what these restaurants, these restaurants, the gyms, the bars, that's what they're facing right now, is the revenue has completely stopped. But instead, if we make it to where these businesses have some cash flows through this, and they can cover some of those fixed costs, some of those expenses that they absolutely have to have, electricity, you know, rent, paying their employees. Paying their employees is the number one thing. Like you want to pay your employees as a small business. And so for them to be able to have some income coming in, even though they know that on the back end, like later on, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a dip for a while. It's going to be a struggle for a while. We all know that. It's going to be a struggle for a while. But struggling to stay in business for, you know, 6 months or a year is better than going out of business right now.
Immediately, yeah.
And that's what they're facing. And so smoothing those cash flows. So absolutely, yes. If you're listening to this and you've been wondering if buying a gift card actually does help, yes, it does. Do it.
And that's what earlier you were talking about, this idea you were having as like a Christmas in April kind of thing. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the U.S. government is talking right now about issuing some stimulus checks, and the package that's being proposed right now is $1,200 per adult, plus a little bit extra for families with children. So like for the two of us, we would actually receive $2,400. And then families with kids, like if you've got a husband, wife, and, you know, a couple of kids, you'd receive more than $2,400. Okay, so that's what the stimulus package right now is being debated on. And if that passes and they issue those checks, you know, by all means, there are a lot of people out there right now that they just need to pay their bills. They just need to pay.
This wouldn't be for. This.
Yeah, I'm not talking to you guys. The ones that you need to pay your rent, you need to buy groceries, you know, pay your utilities bills, get caught up on things. I'm not talking to you. The ones that I'm talking to are the ones that are able to continue continue living and continue having income throughout all of this, and you receive that stimulus check. I think that what we should do is what we'll be doing is we'll have a Christmas in whatever month we get the checks.
Yeah,
we'll call it April.
Hopefully it'll be April.
You know, Christmas in April, and go out and spend that money, pump it into the economy. These checks are not meant to go into your savings account.
Because that was the first thing that, like, I heard the thing, you know, that we were potentially going to be getting like a check, and, you know, my mind, you know, we're trying to buy this house, and immediately I was like cool, that's going to be an extra, you know, mortgage payment. And then Stephanie was talking me through that, how that worked, and yeah, it's such a good, like, going to be such a, like, that's what needs to happen, is like that money needs to be pumped back into the
The
economy,
economy.
and ideally your local economy, like, if you can.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll be going out and buying, gift cards or products or whatever we can from the local from local businesses and pumping that money. These are called stimulus checks because they're supposed to stimulate the economy. They're supposed to jumpstart the economy again, where everybody has a little bit of extra income that they weren't counting on. And again, not talking to those people who just lost a bunch of income.
Yeah, this is not. You guys need to use that for rent and
Yeah, you guys need to do what you need to do to survive and keep
keep on keeping on.
keep on keeping on. But those of us who are fortunate enough to have stable jobs and still having income through this time, or have savings enough to get us through this time, like let's use this to help jumpstart the economy. That's what it's really for. The government can't mandate what you spend it on, but I'm telling you, you really, really, really should consider spending it in the local economy, spending it in our economy somehow, preferably local economy, preferably small businesses, but however you can.
Well, you guys know, like,
it'll help.
You know what businesses are in your area that are going to be taking a hit. Like Camber Brewing, they only started up like a year ago, so they're like only a year old. And I mean, they had to like temporarily lay off their bartenders because, I mean, nobody's coming into the bar. They can't. It's not open. You can go in for takeout, but there's no tips like coming in. Like, there's nobody like hanging out. Like, oh yeah, I'll have one more.
Yeah.
Like, that's not really a thing. Like,
And there's a lot less people coming in and buying crowlers than there were coming in and having a sit down, especially with the ski hills closed.
yeah, because they we're in Winter Park, and Winter Park Resort is just right up the road, and they closed the ski hill early, because usually I think the closing day was going to be middle of April, so they closed, I mean, pretty much a full month early. So that's a huge hit. Like, the town is totally dead right now. Like, I don't know what the situation here is with the seasonal employees at the resort. Vail told them to go home. Park City told theirs to go home. So I'm not sure what's going on right here. I'm sure it's the same.
I'm sure it's the same.
Like, I'm sure it's the same. So the town is pretty much dead. But so it's one of those things, like, you guys know, like, what businesses are going to be hit in your area. And I'm not saying, like, just stay in your own town, like, go to the next town over, go whatever. But, like, ultimately the thing is if you have the means, if you're good, if you don't need that stimulus check, like, to pay to live with, like, think about spending it.
Yeah, for sure.
Usually I'm like, don't spend unless you need to, but
this is one of those times where the whole world is flipped on its head.
Yeah.
And we need to do the opposite of what we've been doing for a while.
Yeah. Well, it's like, because there's like stuff like we need. It's like, I need a full face helmet for mountain biking season this year, so I don't bust out my teeth like you almost did last year. But we got you a full face helmet for Christmas. But I need one, and so, like, normally I just buy that off of Backcountry, but I'll probably be going to a local retailer this time around and seeing what they have, and at least trying. Like, I'm not gonna buy something that I don't want or don't like if the local retailer doesn't have it, but still give it a shot. I mean, you don't want to buy you don't want to just buy junk, but
Yeah.
that's another thing. Like, don't buy junk, but
Yeah, don't buy junk that's going to end up in the landfill, because that's totally different.
Yeah,
issue.
that's worse. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. How long have we talked about this? Oh my gosh, nearly 30 minutes. What are we doing? We were going to play a game tonight, but I don't think we're even going to have time to play the game. So
That's okay.
That's okay. We can just talk about this just a little bit longer. We'll make this a little bit shorter podcast than we have historically.
Yeah.
So, it's just been kind of an interesting times.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird time. Definitely, like, I mean, as everybody's been saying, unprecedented. And
Yeah.
you know, I saw something today that was comparing this to the Spanish flu, and and like how when that happened, that was in the early 1900s, like 1904 or something like that. No, 1912. Anyway, early 1900s. When that happened, they were also shutting down, like gathering, like you couldn't gather in groups of more than 10, like almost exactly what's happening now. But you know, and I haven't done like like obviously I haven't done a ton of like research on the differences, but I think the main difference, if I were like speculating as to what the main difference is now, like why this is actually unprecedented, why Spanish flu was not the same thing, is because of the global economy now. And back in the 1900s, you know, you didn't have thousands of airplanes transporting people and goods back and forth across continents every single day.
I mean, you didn't even have airplanes then, I don't think.
No. I don't know when airplanes were invented, but it was the early 1900s. So no, I mean, you wouldn't have had any kind of.
I think it was 1943.
Ow! Just smacked my arm. You wouldn't have any kind of commercial like airline. No, not in the early 1900s. No, it was.
First commercial airline. I'm looking it up. I'm curious.
Okay, but. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is, I mean, like we got our first case in Colorado from a guy that lived in California, traveled to Italy, didn't know he had it, obviously, came back to California, spread it there, and then went on a ski trip to Colorado and spread it there. And that's when he actually got sick and diagnosed, was when he was in Colorado.
Yep.
And our very first cases were because of somebody who, within a 2-week period, went from California to Italy, back to California to Colorado. That wouldn't have happened in the 1900s, in the early 1900s.
Because when was Spanish flu? Was that?
That was like I want to say like 1912, 1914, something like that.
Looks like commercial flights. There were like commercial flights like early 1900s, but commercial flights apparently didn't really come popular until like 1950s.
So when was... Oh, wait. So there were commercial airline.
It looks like the first one was in 1914.
Which was right about the time of the Spanish flu.
Yeah, but maybe
so the
just
very
because
first
just
one.
because there was one doesn't mean like it was happening a lot.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously right now, like, and yeah, right now.
Yeah, so the Smithsonian Institution basically said the era of mass air travel begins in the 1950s. So I think that's a fairly credible source.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just like you can't go from one spot to the next, to the next, to the next.
Yeah.
You know, or you couldn't then.
You can now.
Now, I mean, fuck, you can travel like, across the country and, with the interstate system and cars that, are the speed limits are 75. Like, even if you're not even air traveling, like you can go from one state to the next. In 1920, like that wasn't really a thing. Like there were cars, like sure, but.
Yeah, but you couldn't get from California to New York City in 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a thing. I don't know how long it would take, but it would take a while, I'm sure.
I'm sure it would. Yeah.
Yeah,
so it's definitely an interesting time that we live in, but what I'm struggling with right now is positivity.
Yeah.
And having some kind of, like I said, I'm spending all day, every day, during the workday, dealing with whatever my clients are dealing with and helping them through this and trying to budget through this and, making those really tough decisions of who you can and can't afford to pay anymore. Those are mentally taxing, really difficult decisions, and that's what my days are consumed by right now. And then at the end of the day, when I get off work, I told this to Nate the other day, and I apologize for making this kind of a tough conversation, but it's my job is to be there for my clients all day, every day. And then when I get off work, that's when I try to shut my brain down. And that's typically when I start having my own mental issues, my own positivity issues, and really struggling with my own mental health. And, I've had several mental breakdowns this past week. And so if you guys have any suggestions on like how to keep positive during this time, I'm very open to that. I'm usually one of the types that is, pretty upbeat and trying to find the silver linings and everything, but I'm really and honestly struggling with this one.
Yeah, struggling this time around. Yeah, it's pretty tough. Because the other part about it is like you and I talk we talk about it after you get off work because we kind of have to.
Yeah.
Because we're always like strategizing on like, what's the best way for us to go forward to like make sure that we stay safe. We really, really try to have, we don't overthink things, but we always have a plan. I would
Absolutely.
I would say.
We always have a plan and a backup plan.
Yeah, as long as it's one of those things. And that's the hard part. It's like, what the fuck is the backup plan for this?
Yeah.
That's the hard part. Because like, what if this lasts, 8 months? What if it lasts, 18 months or whatever? They started rolling out vaccinations. And I know it's about like slowing down the spread of this virus, but which I think, and it's also like kind of this like strange thing because it's also a state by state thing. It's like New York, California, and Colorado are doing a lot. Like they're shutting down stuff that needs to be shut down.
Yeah.
And then it's
Illinois is, Pennsylvania. There's a lot of states that are.
Yeah.
But there's still states that aren't.
Then you got Florida and Texas off there just fucking around. Like,
what are you guys doing?
They're not even like trying. And like, so, so we went to Texas A&M for college, and like, even still, so uber Republican conservative like school, and it's just they're just not taking it seriously. Like even in Bryan College Station where the university is, it's like, last time, I don't know if they've changed it within the last like 2 days because things are rapidly evolving. They're still letting bars stay open until they're like, okay, well, we're going to make the bars close at 9:00. It's like, what the fuck, guys? Like that helps. It's like that. It's not even trying. Like that's just like this like play of, you're pretending like you're doing something, but really you don't give a fuck. Mm-hmm. And so it's frustrating. And so it's like, that's the place that we went to college, and to know that like, we had just a lot of friends that are, went to college there, and obviously, and just like, not taking it seriously. And it sucks. It's hard.
Really sucks to see some of the like very bright people that I went to college with not taking this seriously and like mocking people. And I'm like, you're dumb.
Yeah.
You're dumb. I thought you were smart, but you're dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the hard part, because like what happens if we know what happens if we don't do anything. Like those projections have already been published and agreed on.
It's not even projections at this point. Like we can just look at Italy and see like, okay, if we don't do anything, Italy is where we're going to be in 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And well, the projections show like where Italy's going to be. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that are like the scary ones. And, that's the part, another thing about like is just like, people talking shit about this whole scenario on Facebook. And it's like, oh, I moved our branding out of the way. our non-sponsored sponsor. So the other part about that is like the people who we know who are like contradicting what like doctors are saying. It's like the people who I've seen contradicting what physicians who are in the World Health Organization, it's like, oh, cool. So you're a farmer from Corn, Oklahoma. Like, you know a lot about the medical industry, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a welder from buttfuck Texas. Like, you're in the oil field. Like, you're an oil field worker. What do you know about medical? Like, just don't say anything. Like, if you don't have anything like to add to the conversation, like,
Yeah, if you're not an
don't.
expert on this, and let's just make this clear that this is not a political issue either. Like,
right.
I'm so sick of hearing the political issues of oh well, the Democrats said this, and so I'm not going to follow it, or the Republicans said that, and so, or the Republicans proposed this bill, so I hope it doesn't pass. Like, get off your fucking high horse right now. Mm-hmm. And this is not the time. Like, I am not the type to quote Mitch McConnell, but
yeah.
this is not the time for perfection in politics. This is a time for actually banding together, doing what we need to do, and passing stuff and getting stuff done.
Yeah.
It needs to be bipartisan. We need to throw parties out the window right now. I'm so sick of seeing the political stuff, being talked about, and like even political memes. It's not the time for that, guys. It's really not the time for that. Let's take care of people. Let's get people fed. Let's make sure they have roofs over their heads, and get some jobs back in the economy. And then we can go back to the status quo of, Democrats versus Republicans, whatever.
Yeah, then we can bicker.
Right now is not the time.
Yeah, I think so too. And the other part about that is like right now is really exploiting people who don't like to take action, who don't like to do stuff, who just like to sit back and tell people what won't work. That's what I'm seeing just a ton of. It's like, well, we can't do that. That's not going to work. It's like, well, what will work?
Do you mean exposing? You say exploiting. I don't understand.
Yeah, exposing people who aren't willing to take action. Like, and it's up to everybody to take action. Like, you don't need to have a governmental mandate for you to stay at home, but that's the best thing to do is to stay at home. And turn that off. That's the best thing to do is just to stay put. Like, this needs to be one of those, like, we were talking to Jordan and Emily last night, and we were two of our good friends, and they were, he's a firefighter in Ottawa, and he's like, it just needs to be one of these things where it's just like a Band-Aid ripping it off. Like, we just need to stay at home for like 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Like, it just needs to be a thing, and it's going to get better immediately.
Yeah.
It's not going to fix itself in 3 weeks. Like, that's not going to be a thing. But if we can have like this hard cap of like spreading, it's going to immediately get better.
Yeah. I want to end this on a positive note of, speaking of Jordan and Emily, so Jordan and Emily are a couple of our really good friends. They live up in Ottawa and, Canada, for those of you who don't know.
Canada.
But they FaceTime me today with the coolest, funniest idea that, I'm sure there's plenty of cool ideas with kids. Trying to keep your kids sane, keep yourself sane, and keep your kids entertained. Mm-hmm. But they had set up a tent in their living room, and they were going to be camping tonight. And they set up a tent. They had their fireplace going. So to kind of give that like campfire feel and everything. And Jordan even brought out some of like their Christmas decorations of like deer. Like as I was talking to Emily, the youngest started screaming, and she was like, Jack, you've got to stop screaming because you're going to scare off the deer. I was like, that's the most amazing thing. Like,
so polite.
They're being so creative and
so Canadian.
So Canadian, very Canadian.
It's the
absolutely.
best.
But yeah, I just wanted to end on that positive note of I really love seeing like the creativity of people, and we're trying our best here, but we don't have kids, so all I can do is try to train my dogs to like do cool things, which is not working very well. My dogs don't listen to me at all unless I have a hot dog in my hand.
Just got
which
one. Just
the
got.
grocery store is out of. So sorry, bud.
Sorry, you just got one dog that's clicking around here. So sorry about the audio in this podcast. Maybe it's not too bad. But yeah, I'll be, on the positive notes. I'm excited to see like what comes of this this crisis. A lot of people are realizing that a lot of these jobs are able to be performed from home, so that's pretty cool. We are really developing a lot of stuff from the maker community, from just like 3D printed masks and that kind of stuff. And it's just like, I think there's going to be some positive things that happen on the back end of this thing.
I think so.
So, but
innovation.
Yeah, innovation. So we didn't anticipate talking about this. I think I said in the beginning of this this podcast, this is not going to be a podcast about this, but this turned into a podcast about this.
You lied.
I lied. Sorry,
You're
guys.
a liar.
But next week we're going to play this game, Incoherent. I actually bought it for Stephanie for her birthday back in January, and we just don't have time. So we're going to play that next week. So we will talk to you guys next week for a game of Incoherent.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Stay inside.
healthy.
See y'all later.
Bye, guys.